What is a trauma bond? This is a word that is being used all over social media to talk about relationships that are toxic and unhealthy. But the reality is, it's a real thing. People are connected by trauma. And today we're going to tap into what a trauma bond is and what are the stages of being in a trauma bond right after this. What is mindset? Our mindset is based on what we believe, and anything we believe in, we put into motion. I have spent my life putting the mindset of perseverance into motion, and now I am here today to share my journey along with others whose mindsets have changed the course of their lives. Hi, I'm mindset coach Lorraine Lindsey, and I believe that if you can change your mind, you have the power to change your life. So are you ready? Welcome back to another episode of the Lorraine Lindsey Podcast. We are here to talk about mindset and mindset shifts. And today we are going to tap in to a conversation about trauma bonds. It's going to be a candid conversation with my reoccurring guest, Clevonne Funches. And we're going to tap into this, right? And I love having you on, and I'm glad you're coming back. And we're creating our own trauma bond here on the show.
I'm with it. I'm with sitting in that jail about to rot.
But you know what's interesting is that you've been on the show a couple times recently, and we definitely have different perspectives on the topics that we've talked about.
Yes.
I love seeing the people's respond when I'm showing clips and you know how they're perceiving you and I. But I love it because it's coming from a real organic place and it's based on a lot of our experiences. And as we were talking off camera, I was like, well, what are we going to talk about? And definitely something that you and I can both relate to is connecting to people that we end up having a lot of problems with, and it's really truly dialed into the traumatic bond that we have from our childhood, from pathology, what we learned and what we think is good for us in the beginning but turns terrible for us in the end. And so I think it's a good time for us to tap into that conversation and kind of break that down, because it's such a buzzword right now. I'm in a trauma bond, it's a trauma. But really talk about what is this thing called a trauma bond. So I got this great article. I will reference the article on the podcast. So if people want to read the article in its entirety, they can. But I want to read a little bit of what it says trauma bonding is by definition, okay, and where this term came from. So trauma bonding is a powerful emotional connection that develops between those who are abused and their abusers, particularly when the abused person experiences kindness or affection between episodes of abuse. Okay, this is a big thing. Understanding the 7 stages of trauma bonding, which we'll talk about, can provide critical insight into the manipulative tactics often found in toxic relationships. Real quick, trauma bonding is a psychological response to abuse. It is a theory introduced by Dr. Patrick Carnes in 1997 to describe the unique relationship that develops between the abuser and the abused. This bond often emerges in relationships where a recurring cycle of abuse is interspersed with moments of kindness and affection, creating a confusion, emotional atmosphere for the victim. And this is what I find. I'm so glad it said that and described that, because that's exactly what happens in a trauma bond relationship, because I've been in those relationships and they're incredibly difficult emotionally to remove yourself from, because they represent such a familiar cycle of life that you had prior to being in relationships. But the big trap is the good times and the beautiful times when it's like really amazing. And then when it switches into the abuse or the toxicity, and then going through that cycle. So it's just this weird emotional roller coaster.
I want to say this because you was laughing at me last time when I talked about me creeping behind Fowler's Paredes. Now,
Wait, creeping behind what?
Fowler's Paredes, getting it in behind Albertsons, behind Walmart.
Oh, that's right. I didn't know what you were saying last time. I didn't know what you were saying this time either.
I was getting it in trauma bonded. I was trauma bonded. So a lot of people, with similar backgrounds, because I was talking to you before about people who do go through different types of abuse. And a lot of people who do go through different type of abuse have different traits that are so similar. For instance, a kid who has been violated, a person who has been violated as a kid, sometimes, not all the time, sometimes they will have a higher sexual appetite, or they'll become withdrawn from sex.
Right.
So a lot of people will draw closer to other people, which means they'll get with somebody that's normal. And I'm just using this as an example. They'll get with somebody that's normal. Just normal person.
Wait, describe normal. Because I don't think trauma bonds are two normal people or one of the people are normal. I think trauma bonds is because both people have experienced some level of trauma and they're bonding because of that.
True, they are. But what I'm saying is I'm using this one part as an example where you have somebody that does not have a high sexual appetite.
Okay.
They're just kind of down for whatever. But the person with the higher sexual appetite is going so far. They're going deeper and deeper. They're like, what the hell wrong with you? Sometimes the person don't understand the person. Mm-hmm. They don't understand what's really going on with that person psychologically.
Okay.
So that's why if you get with somebody that has not been through certain traumas, then you go find that unconsciously. You go find certain things unconsciously.
So, okay, because I feel like trauma bond for me, from my experience with trauma bond, is at the root of the tree were the same essence, right? So for example, when I've been in relationships that were trauma bonds, the root of the tree was abandonment. We both were struggling with abandonment issues. That was the root of the trauma.
Okay.
Now, how the narrative of that abandonment played out in our lives created two separate kind of people. So we're emotionally the same as far as our traumatic experience and what it left us feeling, but how we protect that shows up different. So for me, with my abandonment issues from growing up, that made me have a fear of engulfment, meaning I don't like people to get too close to me. I always find a way to keep people at arm's distance. I'm the kind of person that you talk about fight or flight, I'm the flight person. I want out, I want to disappear. I'm not good with the confrontation because either I'm going to get really angry and explosive or I'm going to completely shut down. Now, who do I attract though? I attract the person who has a literal fear of abandonment. And so what happens with that person is they are needy, they feel neglected. If I start to retreat, they want to get closer. And so here I am trying to get away when I'm in my trauma phase, and they're trying to get closer, and I feel suffocated and they feel like they're not getting enough. But emotionally, we're the same people. It's just that the trauma has created different reactions out of us.
And after a while, it becomes sexy.
I don't know about that. What do you say that for?
After a while, it becomes sexy because that's the toxicity.
Okay.
It's a what you say? I say unconscious. You say subconscious.
Oh yeah.
But it's something in our conscious that makes it sexy after a while.
Okay.
Because somebody that keeps hearing the word no, and when they get with somebody that constantly says yes, they're like, oh, this ain't right. This don't sound right. This don't feel right. I ain't with this.
Well, it does create a cat and mouse game for sure.
Oh yes, and that becomes sexy after a while.
I guess I see what you're saying. I think you see what you're saying because I feel like the highs and lows can create a dopamine spike. It literally, I could be, when they talk about the makeup sex or the makeup in the relationship is like the best time. But when you are doing peaks and valleys in your relationship in such an unhealthy way, you can get addicted to that, right? Because when you feel really low, you're so funny.
Hey, because keep talking, you preaching.
No, but when you feel really broken and defeated and hurt in that relationship, really what you're craving is for them to fix it and make it right. And this is where the bond of that traumatic experience becomes tighter because what happens is you'll go through a period where I hate you. I'm so upset, I'm going to leave you. And then they become the best version of themselves to get you back or vice versa, or you do that. And so then you go through this spike of this incredible making up and even sometimes the sex is really amazing. And you get reconnected and you get this dopamine rush and the serotonins and everything just starts going and you start to feel good. And it's kind of no different than taking a drug, if you will.
Oh yeah.
Which makes it very hard to get out of.
Whew, and that goes back to what makes it hard to heal too.
And it makes it hard to heal,
It makes it extremely hard to heal because now you got to dig so deep that you don't even know where you're digging. Or will I ever stop digging? Because that's one component of the healing. One component. That's not all of them. So you may have figured out a way to deal with the trauma from as a child, but now as an adult, I just ran into something totally different. This is a whole different monster.
It's interesting you say that because I'm writing this down because healing is uncomfortable. And I think that is the thing that is not shared often enough when people are on their quote unquote healing journeys is that the healing part of it is very uncomfortable. And a lot of times it's easier for a lot of us to just go back to default to what we're used to. Yes. Because when you're healing, part of that unhealing is unearthing some things that need to be dealt with. Yeah. And a lot of times we just rather just say, I just don't want to deal with it. Why do I have to bring up the past? Why do I have to bring up the old stuff? I don't want to talk about those things. It's uncomfortable. or even the bad relationship. I'm just done with that person. I don't want to be with that person. I'll just move on with my life.
Yeah.
But when you're starting to do healing work, you have to unearth that stuff that makes you uncomfortable to really try to figure out how to manage life moving forward. And it's not easy when you're hardwired for those experiences.
I used to hear a lot of women in the community I was around. I always say within my community, within my experience,
I love this.
they used to always say, go somewhere and heal. That used to piss me off.
Why?
Because you're not healed. First of all, your edge is gone. Second of all, you can't pay your rent. Third of all, you got the nerve to tell me go somewhere and heal. You ain't got no gas in your car. Like I would, just me being sarcastic.
Yeah.
But
that was funny.
It's so harsh for a person to tell you to go do something they never done themselves.
That's true.
And it's so easy attack words. But guess what? At the end, it's so sexy because.
Okay, we're going back to sexy. Speaking of sexy.
It becomes sexy because now I'm going to go heal for a day and show back up like everything okay.
That's right there. That part right there. Actually, exactly. I know you're being silly and making jokes, but at the same time too, that's relevant and that is very true. It
happens so often because most people. Here's the thing, because we got to attack healing. Is most people know how to work on a situation for a day, but they don't know how to work on it for months. Most people know how to address, most of us, the vast majority of us know our issues, what's going on. I can constantly tell you, I have this going on. I'm working on that, right? When it comes time to attack that face on, we don't know how to do that.
But you know why I think, and this is just my opinion, it's not anything psychological, it's just what I think from experience, is I think a lot of times the reason why our healing is ineffective is because we're healing for the wrong reasons. In my relationship that was toxic or unhealthy because we were trauma bonded, a lot of times when the relationship was on the downside and things were bad and you were feeling depleted or sad or hurt or whatever, fill in the blank, you would seek out help to try to restore the relationship. I mean, I had a relationship where my person would go and get counseling and therapy just to restore us. When I talk about healing, really, truly healing is like, I have to do this independent of whether or not this relationship is going to work out. And some people will not go and seek their healing because they know that in that healing, it's going to require them to leave a situation that they're not ready to leave.
Most people, here's a catch-22 statement you made. Most people would say it requires them to leave the situation,
sometimes.
What you just said. And a lot of people will walk away and abandon it because they're ahead of that person. Now, there are people who choose individuals who don't have it together. So I'm addressing this as a whole.
So you're saying they choose them intentionally?
Intentionally.
Okay.
I know you don't got it together. I know you're not where you're supposed to be, but it's a comfort. So I'm already here. I know that you're down here. And so when I get a little more better, then it's easy to bash you. Because I know you'll never get it together. A lot of people
either
know,
bashing, or I think people get trapped thinking they're going to fix people.
Yes, or they get trapped, but then it's okay for me to always be ahead. Some people choose people because they're ahead of them. They're already ahead. I'm ahead of you, so it's a control factor where I don't have to go back.
Well, it's controlling, but it's still unhealthy,
it's safety.
Right?
Controlling becomes safety as well.
It's a false sense of safety. It's not real safety. It's not real safety.
Okay,
you can't control things the way we think that we can.
But you can control the narrative in a lot of ways, because like how you said, when a person get too close, you stiff on them. You gonna Heisman them. I'm gonna give you the Heisman real quick. You can stay over there, bro.
Right.
But deep down inside, you really want all the stuff they're trying to give you. How do we fix that?
Well, because we're saying two different things. I think you're not wrong by saying I want them to give me what it is that I need. I think we're all innately like that. We all want to be given what we need, right? That's really most of us in relationships. It's like, I need you to conform to the things that I like so you can make me happy.
Correct.
Instead of having the mindset of like, I love this person, what can I do to make them happy? You know, we don't think like that. We want the other person to make us happy instead of thinking, how can I make them happy? But I think that's usually where our problems lie. But again, if we are dealing with unhealed business and we're attaching ourselves to relationships that are familiar to that, then it becomes a whole different dynamic, in my opinion.
Okay. So the statement I just made, as far as most of the relationships we choose are by choice, because all
of the relationships we choose are by choice. Not most, all. You don't think so?
No, I agree.
I mean, I have my mom, I have my sisters, I have people in my life, coworkers, et cetera, right? But when we want a relationship with them, we choose the relationship.
Most people don't know how to fix that.
Well, I mean, fix what?
Fix that relationship. They want it so bad, but they don't know how to fix it.
Yeah.
I want so bad for my dad to get better, but I don't know how to fix that.
Well, you can't.
No, you can't, but I'll find myself drifting back to it sometimes here and there.
But I think that's the thing, and I know we've talked about it a little bit, and this is something that I've really, truly am trying to master in my own life personally, is I can't want somebody to be something that they're not, and I certainly can't want for somebody to be something they don't want to be. And I have to surrender and lay down the sword to that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, in a perfect world, my mother would be this kind of person, or my partner would be this kind of person, or my best friend would be this kind of person, or whatever, in a perfect world. And in a perfect world, I would conform to what they want. But the reality is, if everybody got what they want, nobody would get anything. It would never end.
True, but we want something that we really don't want sometimes.
Like what? Give me an example.
Give an example. I can be a man. I'm using me as an example. Man, I want a woman to do this. I want a woman to support me.
Be more specific. Like you're a man. You want a woman to do what?
I want a woman while I'm down to have my back. I want a woman that's going to fill the gap. That's not going to just come to me while I'm on my successful high. But I want a woman that's while I'm down, she's saying, what do you need so we can get there?
Okay.
Because she knows what I'm capable of.
So why do you feel like you haven't had a woman like that?
Because I always went to the ones that were of the norm, what we're talking about with
what
trauma
is the
bonding.
norm? Define the norm.
Is the ones from the community with the mindset. The mindset of the community that's stuck. Remember those hyenas? I was raised around hyenas. Remember, hyenas keep going back to each other.
But okay. So I know we're just talking dialogue here, right? But let's just say someone's saying exactly what you're saying. There's no clarity in what you're saying. It's too vague. It's not specific. So you can't get something if you're not clear on what that is.
But listen to me, all right? And men know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
As a man, I'm down.
Okay.
I brought up last week.
Be more specific.
Okay,
down
I'm down.
For what?
All right. I just lost, right? I just lost my rental properties, my properties.
Okay.
I was on the verge of losing my main house. I'm in debt. Okay. I have no income. I am sitting.
So I see. So when
down.
You said down, you mean you're literally down on your luck.
I'm down on my luck.
Because at first I
stuck.
thought you were saying I'm down like I'm a ride or die.
No,
okay,
no,
so
no.
You meant down
There's a lot of people that's ride or die while you got
it.
So now I'm down. I'm sitting here stuck. And how many women are willing to come and say, I see the potential in this man. I'm going to be patient with him and build with him and go with that. Or how many of them say, come back to me when you get your shit together?
Okay. So
and I run into that more often. So me, because my mindset is a business, I am focused on business. I cannot turn that off.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. When you, as you describe it, were down in your luck, and you're saying, where were the women at that were going to be supportive of me during that time? Were you in a space emotionally, mentally, that you were available to women like that?
In an honest statement, it was still some healing need to be fixed.
Okay.
So now, because I recognize that. Listen to what I'm saying. I can recognize that.
Okay, but I'm just playing along with the narrative, okay? I'm not saying you specifically. I'm not making it personally, but this is something that people need to hear. Sometimes we're looking for something for our lives when we're not even open to be receptive to that. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's why I ask you, you were down in your life and you're asking, where were the women? Well, were you open to receive that kind of thing from a woman at that time in your life?
I kept drifting back off to what's normal.
Well, okay, so let's talk about your normal. If you're saying, when I am king of my kingdom and my harvest is there and I've got the fruits are plentiful and you're just in this great space, right? Emotionally, you're in a better space, okay?
Hands down.
Now, in that time in your life, when you're attracting specific women, are you clear on the kind of women you're attracting? And are you more confident to attract a specific type of woman? Because, and the reason why I'm saying this is because if at that time when you were high and mighty, and the woman that would have been the woman that would have been your ride or die, did you dismiss her at that time? Because we have to understand how we're participating. I know men and women, okay, who are on top of their game. They are on cloud 9 with their life and what have you, and they think they're unstoppable, untouchable, and they become arrogant. they get a little full of themselves.
That's true.
And they think that only these kind of people are around. And they completely downplay the people that will be there with them through thick and thin.
Because they wasn't there, it happens. But the issue that women, or not women, just people overlook is I don't know who to trust at this point. That's what makes it harder while I'm up here. That's why I'm saying I'm down on my luck. I don't want to keep on dealing with the women from the community because remember I said I can go to another state and find the same mindset unconsciously. So how do unconsciously, I realize I'm like, oh, this one look good, man. She got her edges. I love this.
That's a you problem. That ain't that woman problem.
It was not a woman problem. I'm saying people in general. Now I'm speaking abroad.
So let's talk about love bonding. It's step number 1 of trauma bond.
Wait, can I say this real quick?
Go ahead.
All right. What I was going to say is I would go find the same exact thing in other states and other places, and I constantly bring it back. And I realized that I had to fix something else within myself.
Yeah.
So once I started finding the women that do qualify seriously, because everybody don't qualify. I learned that. I realized I pushed them away.
It's interesting choice of words.
The ones that everybody don't qualify to be in your space. I've learned to tell people if I didn't call for you, don't come for me. A lot of people will come for you hands down, even though they're not qualified to be in the space where they're supposed to be.
Well, I mean, are you hiring these people for the job?
Well,
the ones that aren't qualified?
I would be interviewing them. Why did they even make it to the interview process?
You see what I'm saying? People don't realize that they contradict themselves in their lives.
I put myself in that position.
And then they don't understand why their life is showing up the way that it does.
Because there's a part of you that gotta heal to receive what you need, not what you want. I want somebody in this space, but I need somebody in this space.
Okay, then who are you willing to be?
That's the part where you got to address you. I'm willing to be.
Now it's back on me.
No, not you. I'm saying it's abroad.
But answer that. I'm
willing to be somebody I've never been.
You're very clear in defining all the outside elements in your life, right? The qualifying factors, as you put it. But who are you willing to be? I'll give you an example. I had a friend years ago. What a great guy. Really wonderful man, okay? And he had gotten into a lot of trouble in his life, and he decided in that pathway, his rock bottom was he found Jesus. That was his thing. That's what happened. He literally found Jesus. He became a devoted Christian, and he devoted his life to the church. I thought you were about to say he became a deacon. Keep going. He didn't become a deacon, but he just got really involved in the church and the community of the church, and he decided, I'm a man of God, and I want to find my wife. I want to have a wife, right? I didn't even finish my story over there.
Keep going, because you already know I've been in church. I've been raised in church, so keep going.
This is not one of those bad church experiences that you had.
No, not bad, but keep going.
But for him, that pathway got him on the straight and narrow. It was something that fulfilled his life, and he felt good. With that, though, he felt, because of his belief system and everything, he really, truly felt like what was going to fulfill him and make him whole was to have a wife, okay? So he actually went on he decided to live a life of, my God, my brain is not thinking, not sobriety, when you're not having sex. Celibacy, thank you. I couldn't think of the word. So he decided to be celibate and wanted to hold off and just to really meet this woman. Okay, so all this is great. This is his pathway. This is what he wants. I thought it was a beautiful thing. However, time had passed and he wasn't finding his wife. And he became very frustrated. And he was like, I don't understand why God hasn't given me one. I'm doing all these things that God wants me to do. I'm being a devoted man to the word of God. I am, X, Y, and Z, but I can't find my wife. I'm not finding a wife. And I said, what? And I asked him, well, what does your wife look like? Like, who is she? Like, describe her to me, this woman that you want, that would be ideal for you to marry. And he gave this very descriptive woman, okay? And he said to me, I don't know, kind of like a woman like you. And I said, a woman like me. And I said, well, what does that mean? Because I don't know how he sees me, right? So what do you mean? What's the perception? A headstrong woman, a woman who's a go-getter, knows what she wants out of life, also has her faith. That's very important. Just strong woman. And I said, a woman like me wouldn't be interested in a man like you. And he was very offended. But I said, I'm just saying that to you, not because I'm better than you. It's just that you're doing the things that devote you to God and your belief and all that. And I think that's beautiful. But the things that a woman like me would be intrigued by and would give me an openness to want to marry a man, you're not doing those things. Because he wasn't. He wasn't doing the kind of things that a woman like me, how he described me, would find endearing. It's a long-winded story, but the point is, it's like, what are you willing to do and to become first in order for you to attract what it is that you want for your life? Because I have to be that first, you know what I mean? I can't expect somebody to come fix me and make me right if I'm not willing to do that work myself.
Okay, so like, all right, so like my man, like him shooting his shot, right?
He wasn't shooting his shot. We were really dear friends. It wasn't shooting his shot, I promise you.
I'm a man. So anyways.
He wasn't.
So, right, shooting his shot. So anyways, a woman like you, a woman like me will never choose a man like, well, it's an easy way to me saying I ain't gonna court you. So when I was telling you before, like I say, I would deal with the more professional women that had it together, I would push them away.
Okay.
And I would gravitate more to the women that didn't have it together.
Why?
Because I go back to trauma bonding. I was used to a certain norm and I kept gravitating to that.
Okay.
So I had to address that within myself to realize what I'm attracting. I'm like, this chick working, now I'm not bashing nobody. Please don't think I am. But I'm like, this woman is barely making it. And she feels like she's better than everybody else and has no clue of where she's going in life. Mm-hmm. And those are the type of women I keep attracting. They're the ones that have.
But what was it about a woman like that? I mean, I
community. I always say
stop
community.
saying community though. I get that part. No, but what was it in you, in your mind? What were you thinking that you were going to give and offer to this woman?
She complimented my insecurity.
Okay, perfect.
I'm going to say just that. She complimented my insecurity.
And the reason why I'm asking you to be more specific, because you can say it was my community, but that's not specific.
It's community, but it compliments an insecurity.
But what was it about you? Because you weren't walking around. Hold on, Clevonne, hold on.
I don't want to lose my thought.
I know. Write it down.
I ain't got no pen and paper. You got it. Keep going.
But you keep saying community. You keep saying community. It wasn't like you were walking around and you looked at a woman, you're like, damn, that represents community. And you picked her. There was something about what she said to you, spoke to you, things that were whatever. What was that thing that you're now breaking her down into the woman that didn't want to go nowhere with her life? What was it that intrigued you? And you said it about the insecurity thing. So what was the insecurity? Did she make you feel better than yourself because you had nothing?
No, because it's a level of comfort.
Okay.
Insecurity can lie within comfort as well. So I am the ones that do qualify, the ones that have it together, the ones that I need are the ones that I'm not hollering at.
Okay.
Because I feel like, well, I don't know where that's going to go. I don't have it together. And I am so ahead of the curve that when I bring up this thing about community.
What do you mean by you're ahead of the curve? You're not making any sense right now.
Well, when I'm saying I'm ahead of the curve, meaning I'm way better than I'm giving myself credit.
Okay.
But because of something within myself where I downplay myself.
Gotcha.
I don't give myself the credit because these are all, when I keep saying community, the teachings, the mindset, and all that impacts you as you grow.
I know, I understand that, but you understand that eternally. I'm trying to get people who are listening to understand what you mean by that. It's so vague when you say that.
It's vague to you, but there's somebody who's going to listen to this years later and say, I get it. It is an issue within my community. And I'm trying to break that mindset.
Yeah. But you have to start.
My community is my family.
I understand that. And I get what you're saying. I get it. I promise you I do. But we have to start with tapping into ourselves first. Like I can say that the community or my upbringing or my mom or my dad or, just fill in the blanks are all contributing factors to what my life experience and how that's projecting out of my life. I get all of that. But at the end of the day, when I'm making choices for my life, I gotta tap into self and say, what was I thinking at that moment? What was it? What was happening in my life at that moment that this type of person I was attracted to, whatever their thing was?
Some people you got to teach that to.
I'll give you an example. Let me break this down. Let me make it a little bit more. I'll use me as an example. Okay.
Okay. It's about time. Go ahead. Do it.
Because I don't mind. I don't mind being transparent because it's important. It's important. So I want to talk about point number 1, and then I'm going to give a story of my own personal reference.
Okay. Be brief too.
Oh, you want me to be brief? Okay. I know, I ramble. Yes, thank you, Cleve. Thank you.
Go.
So, stages of trauma bonding. Let's circle back to the trauma bonding thing. Okay, number one is love bonding. Love bonding is a manipulative tactic commonly employed by narcissistic people aiming to gain your trust swiftly. Initially, they shower you with affection, compliments, and seemingly sincere love and affection, creating a whirlwind of positive emotions. This sudden overflow of warmth and attention can feel overwhelming yet exhilarating, making you feel cherished and valued. Under the guise of love, the narcissistic individual aims to create a strong bond quickly. However, this stage of intense affection is merely a facade, a precursor to gaining control over your emotions. The cycle of love and affection transitions into phases of devaluation and manipulation. Yet the good memories from the love bonding phase often keeps the individual hopeful for a return to those early days, drawing them deeper into the trauma bond. So this is one phase of a trauma bond, which is this love bombing thing. Okay. So I want to say, for me and my experience with getting into a trauma bond relationship, okay, it was exactly that. It started off as this exhilarating whirlwind of a relationship. It was all of these magical words and everything that I needed to hear at that time in my life. When I reflect back, I think, well, who was she? What did she need and want for her life? And the crazy thing was, I didn't even think that I was open to a relationship. I thought I was in a really good space emotionally. I wasn't self-aware of where I was truly in my life. So when this person came in, and mind you, I actually think that they weren't doing it with great intention. It wasn't like he went in with like, I'm going to do this and love bond and create a trauma bond and be a manipulator. It's just what he knew to do that was effective. You know, does that make sense?
So you got caught up on the puppy love.
I think we both did.
So you got caught up on the puppy love, and deep down inside you knew. Here's the thing, because when you keep on telling me, address what's within, address what's within. So I'm going to address what's within. Is within ourselves, we get in this puppy love phase, and we catch the red flag that we know it ain't going to be no good, and then we keep on going with it. Can you agree with that? Love bombing.
I don't think you catch the red flag right away.
No. You
asked me the question. I don't think I don't think you catch a red flag right away.
Okay, but sometimes
because I don't think it's there initially.
Sometimes we'll see it and ignore it.
I have a friend. Okay. And she met this person, and this person was incredibly charismatic and super charming. He, crossed the T's and dotted the I's for her. She was in a phase in her life where she was seemingly good with where she was at, but there was a piece that was missing for her, okay? And that was really a connection, because really, truly, her biggest issue was being alone. She did not like to be alone.
Okay.
So she would talk herself out of that being a normal thing for her, but the reality was she really wanted companionship. So when she met this person, he's charismatic, he's charming, and he says all of the things that she's been longing to hear. It was almost like a fairy tale. Okay. And it went on for a prolonged period of time.
Pimp?
He was not a pimp.
Okay,
and she
go
was
ahead.
Not a prostitute.
Keep going. I didn't say she was a prostitute, but it's a pimp words. Keep going.
Not pimp words.
Keep going.
Okay.
I'm messing with you. Keep going.
So she got really intertwined in all of the promises and the dreams and the way he painted this picture of life for the two of them.
Okay.
She got really engulfed in that, right? It became like a thing. And it was seemingly believable because he was so good at portraying this life. Once she got hooked, and once she got really into this idea with him, all of those promises became broken promises. All of those things that he said he was going to do, they just started falling off. And she was so like...
So was he codependent?
No, he wasn't codependent at all. She was. She became very codependent. But the thing is, she became very codependent on the narrative. She wanted so much for what he told her to be real that when he was obviously mistreating her and obviously lying to her, it was like she didn't want to see it.
So why do you think a lot of people will get so wrapped up in situations like that and stay when they know it's not going nowhere?
Because it's a trauma bond, right?
So now I'm trauma bonding with the person. When you acknowledge it, because here's the thing, what we're saying, we keep saying we get trauma bonded. most people get there and don't know how to get out.
No, that's true.
And everything, like when
sure.
I'm speaking about a collective mentality. Ooh, I bit my tongue. I'm speaking about a collective mentality where you get trapped and you are stuck. You are literally stuck mentally, and you're so stuck mentally that if you ever get out, you don't know if you will get out. So you're going through this whole cycle over and over and over, repeat it, and it just becomes a norm.
Well, I think
so. It's such a norm that if I get in anything that's regular, like a regular normal, a positive normal,
you'd have to be
I
able
don't want it no more.
But we don't know. A lot of times we're not knowing how to define those things, right? Like when you say norm, what does that mean?
See. So when a person has never
and my normal are very different.
So okay, so my normal here's Clevonne's
some people's normal is dysfunctional. That's normal for them.
Correct. My normal for me, I always dreamt, and this is. I hope I bring it home. So keep up with me, okay?
I am going to keep up with you for sure.
Come on. I ain't going to ramble. But I dreamt that I would get shot at 8 years old. Wow. I had a dream I would get shot. I had a dream that because it was so normal within the community.
Right.
So when I got shot, I expected to get shot.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then I'm around females that are constantly hearing the gunfire. They're constantly living in this war zone mentally. So it's like, it's so normal. Mm-hmm. I need to find a girl who knows how to live like this. I need to find a girl who knows how to be in this environment.
Right.
If something go down, she know how to, and it's so messed up. And the one that was not raised like that, I was intimidated by being with her, even though I was qualified to be with her.
Or the opposite happens. The opposite, and this is another way to get trapped. So in that particular scenario that I'm giving you, that person had a very different life. Okay. And that person was in a relationship with somebody that gave her a very different life where she didn't have all the things and she was exhausted by that relationship. Okay. And she finally got out of it. Her life and her pathology and the things she grew up with weren't things that were of luster. It was all of lack. Okay. So when this person came into her life, instead of it being familiar to her, it was the complete opposite of everything she ever wanted.
Okay.
Okay. So she was lured into that. Just being naive and hopeful because he gave her a pipe dream. He gave her this world that she was never exposed to. And so that was very alluring to her. She was very intrigued by that. And it was like, wow, this is what I want. This is that next phase of my life. This is what I deserve. So she clung to that because she didn't feel in her life, because of her norm, so to speak, everything she grew up around. In her mind, this is the only time she was ever going to meet somebody that could ever give her those things. And so she latched on. She didn't understand her abundance. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
I totally get
so
what
we
you're
can
saying.
get trapped into trauma bonds because we're latching on to familiar dysfunction. And so we just stay in what is our norm. Or we can get trapped because someone's promising us a way out.
Of something that we already have figured out sometimes too. And the reason I say it just like that is because most people do that a lot in business, where they'll already have something thriving and somebody come along and tell you they can help grow your business and get it to a whole nother level, even though they've never grown, even though they never got it there. But because you need help so bad, you will gravitate to it. It's another form of indirect trauma bonding. So now I bonded with somebody in high hopes that they're going to give me something that I've never seen, that they don't have no resume on or anything. And we are so quick to give to a person who's not qualified to handle what we have.
I agree with that.
So working within yourself.
It's an inward thing in my opinion. Okay?
So that's what I was going to say. Working within yourself, acknowledging these things, catching these things before you even evolve to let
it's
people that close.
It's not even catching. It's just raising your standard of living. It's raising your standard of what you and how you show up in life. So let's go back to the analogy of the business. Okay, I'm a business person. And maybe I'm at a point in my business where I feel a level of desperation. So I'm emotionally invested in this business and I'm feeling at a loss.
Yes.
So I could be incredibly vulnerable in that state of mind where someone can come in and manipulate me and make me believe that they're my saving grace. Okay, that can happen. It happens a lot, not just in business, but in relationships when we are in an emotional state of mind. So this is where I've learned even for myself is to say, okay, I know that this may be the answer to my prayers on the surface, but I'm also feeling very emotional right now about my life. And so I'm getting ready to make a hasty decision based on what I'm emotionally feeling.
Sometimes they can be two-folded too, because this
Let me finish.
Oh, go ahead,
please,
Mama.
dear. So what I've learned is that I have to sometimes take a pause, right? And say, before I make this decision, I got to check in with where I'm at in my state of mind. And I've also learned to just do some due diligence. You know, what this person is offering to give me, what is it that within myself that I'm not willing to raise my standard to do that for myself? Does that make sense? I'll give you an example, because you're like, I can tell you're looking at me like, what is she saying?
I'm looking at you because
I was coaching this lady the other day, all right, personal coaching. And I asked her, with the things that she was sharing, I asked her, well, do you feel that you are an abundant person? Do you feel like there's abundance within you? She said, well, I don't know what you mean. And I said, well, the reason why is because a lot of the blind spots of the words that she would use were always words of lack. You know, I'm without this, I don't have this. Okay. And she didn't realize that she spoke a lot on lack. And so I gave her this reference, which is from a book I read called The Mastery of Love. And it was a reference to this magical kitchen. And the reference was this: if you felt, and this is a metaphor, okay?
Okay.
If you felt that who you were possessed this magical kitchen, and this magical kitchen had a stove that could create any delicacy that you can imagine. And not only could it create this delicacy, there was an abundant supply of it, and it would be the best of the best. It would taste better than anything else. And you knew that you possessed this magical thing, right? You would never be hungry, and you would never feel without. So if someone were to knock on that door of that home where that magical kitchen was, and said, I have this pizza for you, and I want to share the pizza, I would say, wow, that's really nice. What made you knock on the door? Well, because I thought I wanted to share. That is amazing. Come on in. We'll eat some of your pizza, but know that we're very full. And if you want, I have some great pizza I can share with you. So what is the point? The point is, if I didn't have that and I felt that I was hungry and starving and without, that person can knock on that door and I will eat whatever they're willing to feed me. So the point is, if we don't get to a space in our lives where we're full, then we can be fed anything. Okay,
I totally agree.
So when you use the friendship analogy or the business analogy, or you reference personal relationships and trauma bond, when I have gotten into trauma bond relationships and that person is bonded with me, it's because we're both trying to be fed something because we're hungry. And we get caught up in whatever they're feeding us. So the example with my friend, this is not a guy she was bonding with because he represented her past. She was so hungry for that dream that he fed her that she freaking drank the Kool-Aid all day long. And so when she's drinking that Kool-Aid, guess what she's doing? She's sharing everybody, the stories with everybody about how this guy is going to be her savior and save her life. And she's going to be this amazing person, and she's going to live like this and da-da-da. And that became her mantra to everybody out there. Nice. So when he started showing up with all the BS and all the nonsense and the manipulation, she's caught up in the story. Not only is she caught up in the story in her own head, their bond was he gets to feed her a fantasy that he wants to live his life like, and she's living vicariously through that fantasy. And so they're bonded off of this BS fantasy world. He keeps feeding her, she keeps eating it, and now she can't get out.
So he sounds like a 30-year-old that's going to still make it to the NBA. I get it. A lot of times, most of the
or
people,
a 50-year-old who's going to have his rap career,
right, and don't even still live with his mama. And one of the issues, because you was just saying the thing with the business too, is when our home front is offbeat, that can create a need for trauma bonding too within our businesses and stuff. Because I only speaking from experience, I've been through that, where it was so offbeat that it's like I'm looking for something outside of this bull crap.
Yeah.
And I got stuck with all the wrong people,
right?
The wrong situations. So now looking at that from in a heal state, how do you never put yourself in that situation?
I like how
again?
You say not never.
Not never, ever again. You can't have a piece of me because there's.
Well, how do you do that? You do it by carrying your ball and meeting people who are carrying their own ball. And what I mean by that is, like, if I'm carrying my abundance with me, who I am, what I know I am, this is my level of standard I show up, and this is what I carry, and I meet someone who doesn't have anything in their hand and I hand them what I've got, then I'm empty.
Some people will spray the water on their face and act like they're sweating from carrying the ball.
Okay, you're so funny. Regardless, the point is that it's checking in, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think sometimes when we're connecting ourselves to these dynamics, it's checking in with saying, it's void fillers. Like, I'm with this person because they're feeling a void in my life, as opposed to I'm with this person because I love them and it's an unconditional thing, and they love and it's an unconditional thing. And there's no give and take. It's just give and give and give and give, you know? And so I feel like that's where we get trapped, because the void is an idea of suffering, as opposed to like, okay, this void in my life is causing me pain. We think the void in our life is causing suffering. Tony Robbins talks about this all the time.
Okay.
He said, what's the difference between pain and suffering? Well, the suffering side of life, when we feel like we're suffering, is because we feel like we don't have a choice. And the pain is like, okay, this is inevitable. Right now, I'm lonely. I don't like to be alone. Okay, so I'm going to do things and raise my standard and blah, 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 blah. I'm going to fill my abundance. Versus, that's painful, but I'm good. Versus, I'm suffering because I'm alone. My life will not be complete unless I have somebody. My life is just empty and is meaningless without this person in my life. And so then we find that person is going to feel that feeling up with us. And so the moment we feel about letting them go, the fear kicks in that we're going to suffer again. This is why we get trapped into that stuff.
That's a good teaching for a lot of individuals.
Thank you.
Definitely a lot of girls. And I always say boys too. Boys got to know their worth. They got it. Boys and men got to learn their worth. So how do we go? We'll go back to your next point real quick.
Let's go to trust and dependency. Okay, that's part 2.
Trust and independence?
No, and dependency. So trust and dependency is another stage of trauma bond. And so as the love bonding stage, so we start in love bonding. So as that stage transitions, a sense of trust and attachment begins to form. Okay, the abuser cleverly intertwines their life with the victims, creating a seemingly vital bond. The victim may start to feel dependent on the abuser for emotional support, validation, or even basic decision-making. This dependency forms a key part of the trauma bond. It's where the abuser gains significant control over the victim's life in a way that's increasingly difficult to untangle. The dependency can be emotional, financial, or social, making the bond complex and challenging to break.
Why do you think a lot of kids who have good homes run away?
Because it's not a good home.
And they leave that home and go to situations like this.
I don't...
they go into a web of confusion.
See, we have to define what a good home is.
And you see how that's...
let's not go there. Because that's a loaded question.
That's such an broad situation, because most people will feel, because I provided, we had a good home, we had a good living condition, but we didn't spend time with the kid.
Right.
We didn't give them
That's
attention.
why I say it's loaded.
And sometimes we will give them too much of what they needed, and we didn't hold them accountable.
Correct.
Or then the kid feels like, you didn't give me no attention and you didn't care. So it's so many different things. And then a lot of kids will gravitate to the negativity because it seems cool.
But let's go back on the trauma bond thing, because that's a whole nother conversation. And that's many, many, many layers to that on why a child
I at least
would
want to
leave
pull
home.
back the scab one day, but keep going.
No, I'm down. I mean, when we talk, you always come with these really good topic ideas that are really they're really good topics, but they require its own time. Because that's a whole nother conversation that we could get into.
Yes, First Lady. All right.
But let's go back to the trust and dependency. No, because people are listening, because I started the show by saying trauma bond. So we got to stick to the topic.
I'm with you.
Okay.
Go. I'm riding with you. I'm a ride or die.
But I think this is important, why we get trapped in it. Because the thing with trauma bonds, and again, I am roping myself into this conversation because of personal experience, is how difficult it is to get out. And the thing is, so many people on the outside will be like, what is wrong with you? Why are you still there? Don't you see that and they want to, I'm guilty of it, doing the friend that I gave you the example for. I was so frustrated watching her go through this. It was so obvious to me and to other people that this was a BS, manipulative, lying person. But yet he was charming and charismatic and polite and all of the things. When he was around the friends, he was like everybody loved him because he was so charming, you know, and so giving. And yet he was just breaking her down.
Isn't that crazy though? This what makes it challenging sometimes, is the person who's giving you the advice to leave don't even have their stuff together. which makes a person.
Sometimes yes and sometimes no.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But then a person would turn off to it because they say, you don't got your stuff together, so how are you going to tell me about mine?
But then that's just ignorance, right? That's an ignorant conversation, because I feel like when you're not emotionally involved in something and you're on the outside looking in, even if you're going through your own stuff, sometimes you see yourself in that stuff and you're like, get out, get out. So just because a person doesn't necessarily have all their stuff together, it doesn't mean that their heart's on the right place when they're trying to advise somebody else. Sometimes we can't figure it out for ourselves, but we can definitely say to somebody, get out of this situation before you end up like me.
Correct.
So there's, again, those are variable conversations. And to me, it's always a measure of intention as to why a person's saying. I know people that'll tell people to get out of relationships just because they're jealous that they're happy, and they're just hating on a relationship. So, I mean, that's a whole nother topic too.
Okay.
But let's go back to this. Trust and dependency.
But people got to be able to cipher that too within themselves and not let the negativity rule over the advice that's being given.
Right, that's but sometimes when you're in a trauma bond, when you're in a relationship that you're entangled with, because now you went from them doing the love bonding phase of feeding you all the stories and narratives, this is the stuff that the other people that are advising you don't hear.
But some people are so unhealed that they don't hear what you're telling them. Because you're giving them the best advice, like, no, girl, you shouldn't be there, or you shouldn't do this. And because they're not healed within themselves, they cannot be receptive to all the positive advice that you're giving them.
Right.
It's an internal thing. So with myself, healing within myself, I am more receptive. You come to me and say, Clevonne, bro, your shirt is on backwards. I'm like, for real? Let me check it out. Past this, I'm like, you out your mother mind. How dare you talk about my shirt? You see the difference? I took it sarcastic.
Right, but I'm talking for people who are listening who know they might be in a bad relationship. Because I feel like when you're in an unhealthy relationship and there is a trauma bond, you know that you're in it. And you want out. And so I'm talking to the people that are in that state.
All right, let me rock with you on that.
They're in this relationship right now, and they're not healed yet, okay? I get we're different people when we're healed. I get it when we're awoke, when we woke. I'm talking about people who are still asleep. And they're inching their way, and they're looking for an answer. They're looking for a way out of this, and so they're tuning in, okay? And so it's about first thing is like, how do I identify with how I got here? I need to know what those steps are. How did I get here? How did I get tangled up in this? And so this is why I'm going over this. So the first phase of it is being trapped into the love bond. When you first get into this trauma bond relationship, that person or both people will pour into each other, right? And they will tell them all the fluff and all the stuff they want to hear. And sometimes when they're saying it, they're well-intended. They mean what they say. Some of them really mean what they say. I don't think everybody who gets into a trauma bond relationship doesn't have good intention. It's just that the more entangled or intertwined you get and more tangled up you get into it, the more fears start to get triggered. The more your vulnerability gets to trigger. And this is where your dysfunction starts to rear its ugly head. And so, again, there's some people who are just straight out trying to manipulate you, like the Tindler, swindler, or whatever. Like they're just out there to take advantage of people.
Yes.
And then there are some people who broken meets broken. And they don't know what's familiar or why they're familiar with each other, but they just really connect. And they feel like, wow, I found my love, my person, my partner. And they make these false promises to one another. Why? Because they believe, I think they truly believe in the beginning that this is something, because we're showing up to save each other. So with our ambitious goal to save one another, we're going to have these wonderful things in our lives, and we cling to that.
And you put hot dogs on the grill, oh my God, and you season your hot dogs to make up all these lies. So how do we get to the point where we are recognizing these different things so that people can start escaping, not impulsively leaving.
Okay.
But
so the first step
leaving.
of knowing that you're in one is to understand that it starts off in phase one, which is love bonding.
Okay.
With that love bonding, it then goes into trust and dependency. Now you're trusting and depending the situation. So I'm going to circle back to the relationship my friend had.
Okay.
The person love bonded her. He told her all of these wonderful things that he was going to create for their life together. Okay. With that, at some point, she started to trust what he was saying, and she became dependent on that story. She believed that he was going to rescue her from her old life, that he was going to be the man, the knight in shining armor. He was going to be the guy that give her all the things. So she depended on that so much, in fact, that she slacked on her work. She wasn't getting up and grinding and doing her work anymore because in her mind, this pipe dream he was selling her, like this magical kitchen situation, he was feeding her and she was drinking the Kool-Aid. And so she stopped being motivated to work because she was on the phone with him hours and hours a day, and she's talking about this and they're just feeding each other, okay? The next thing goes to shift to criticism and devaluation, which you've actually talked about this a lot when you talked about your community and the way you were raised and what women taught you in your community, right? You were always taught and raised to value women and to have this level of respect for women. But yet in the same community that taught you to value, you were being devalued as a man.
Don't value
correct?
your life.
So let me read this a little bit and then I'd love for you to share that. So the shift goes from trust and dependency and love bonding to criticism and devaluation. So after securing trust, the abuser's demeanor shifts from affection to abusive behavior. Compliments turn into criticisms, creating an atmosphere of constant devaluation. The victim, who was once showered with praise, now finds himself yearning for validation and approval, which comes sparsely or not at all. This shift is disorienting and painful, making the victim work harder to regain the lost affection, not realizing that the abuser is continually moving the goalpost. This stage further entrenches the victim in the trauma bond, amplifying the difficulty of breaking free. Now, this is something with me and my trauma bond that I got trapped into.
Wow.
Because the love bonding was so dynamic. It was freaking amazing. And we created a life together and a plan and all this stuff. Then that whole dependency kicked in, right? And trusting, like we're going to have these things because he told me and he believes me and we love each other. And I'm going to do this for him and he's going to do this for me. And literally it was like overnight it switched. He went from thinking I'm so beautiful, so amazing, such an amazing woman, to when we were out in public, he would point flaws on me. You know, like, why do you have that scar on your face? Or, you know, you look too skinny, or if I lost weight, or if you're too thick, you're too heavy, look how big your legs are. And then I'd lose weight. Wow, why are you so skinny? You think your body doesn't move like Jell-O? He would literally, and so it was like, to the outside, like, girl, leave him. What the hell is wrong with you? Get rid of this mofo, you know?
Okay.
But I was so like...
He challenging me, girl.
Oh, no, I didn't even feel like he was challenging. He was just breaking me down because it was like, what am I doing wrong? I started questioning myself. Yeah. What am I doing wrong? Maybe I have gained too much weight. Maybe I am too skinny. What am I going to do about the scar on my face? You know, maybe I need to look more beautiful for him. Maybe I need to do this. Maybe I need to do that. And I started, because I know who he was for me in the beginning. He loved me. He thought I was beautiful. He thought I was the, you know, greatest thing to slice of bread or whatever the expression is. And really getting trapped because now I'm trying to chase what he gave me in the beginning.
See, and having gone through that personally as a man, and
it goes both ways, absolutely.
As a man being in an abusive relationship and hearing a woman tell you that you think you better than everybody, you just trying to show out, you just want everybody to respect you, but you ain't shit. All of that, and it's like I because I was lacking family, because I was lacking being accepted. I'm trying to do everything to please people who were never on my level. And this is why I keep on using the phrase healing, because once I'm healed and I am more aware of who I am,
right,
the value of myself, I could never allow those type of people to even have a place in my space. But because you want this so bad, most people play it to their advantage. Like, oh, I know you lacking this. So they'll come in your space when they're not even welcome in your space.
Right.
And then it brings, and this is way another story, a topic down the line, but it brings negative spirits in your presence as well. Because you start wondering why things are falling off the ceiling and why things are falling apart. Then we can dig into that another time. Okay. But you have to be mindful of who and what you let in your space, because that latches onto you as well.
Absolutely. When someone starts to devalue you and then you start to believe it, then opportunities and everything disappear. It's not that they're not there. It's just that you're focused on what you're not worth.
Have you ever been around with a person and it's like everything going good, and as soon as they come around, everything falls? You've been around a person, you detach yourself from the person, and as soon as they show back up, everything just fall apart. All the deals don't come through, nothing like that.
Well,
You ever been in that position?
I'm not as superstitious about that kind of stuff.
But have you ever experienced something like
I've
that?
definitely experienced times in my life where it's that snowball effect, where it's like one thing after another, after another, after another. Yes. But I also know that when I look back at it, I'm also very focused on everything going wrong. Or if I were to actually measure, there are things that I could be grateful for as well at the same time, but I'm just super hyper focused on everything going wrong.
But being more conscious of
But
that.
it happens. I mean, there are times, it definitely happens where I swear the shit hits the fan, it just spreads everywhere, and just life just becomes this radical
for no
domino
reason.
effect where
It's
just,
like everything is going great, and then this
But
person
I also think that's just really, truly, genuinely a part of life.
Well, this person shows up, and that's where something you got to kind of check yourself on.
Well, I can't blame. I'm not giving my power away. I ain't blaming nobody
it's
for
not
that.
even giving your power away. It's acknowledging what's around you.
Yeah, but I don't think that necessarily it's because a person they got magical powers. I think it's choices I'm making that kind of lead to these. And again, certain things, there's circumstances that are just simply out of our control. I can't say it's because someone's energy is creating that. And then I'm not saying that people don't have bad energy. I've been around people for sure where their energy is not good and it's contagious and they're like vampires and they suck the life out of you. So I'm not saying that, but different conversation.
All right, that's a different conversation. But people do have bad spirits. People do
believe
have
that.
bad
Of course.
energies.
I mean, look at there's
voodoo.
awful people in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad people.
Evil. There's definitely
and a
evil
lot of people try to
for
shoot stuff at you. But go to the next one though.
So let's shift over to manipulation and gaslighting, right? So we went from, and let me just recap, love bombing is phase one.
Okay.
Then we go into the trust and dependency where this is where we get latched. This is where we get hooked. And then that suddenly shifts. You start to see a shift on criticism and devaluation, right?
Okay.
Devaluation, thank you. And then manipulation and gaslighting. So as the trauma bond solidifies, the abuser ups the ante by using manipulation and gaslighting as key tactics to gain further control. Manipulation involves deceit, misdirection, coercion to alter the victim's sense of reality or decision. Gaslighting is a more sinister form of emotional manipulation where the abuser denies or twists the truth, leading the victim to doubt their own perception, memory, or sanity. These tactics are designed to pull the victim deeper into the bond, making them more compliant and less likely to challenge the abuser. Over time, the constant manipulation and gaslighting can severely erode the victim's self-esteem and sense of self-worth, further tightening the grip of the trauma bond.
So do you think that they get the manipulation more in depth because you're insecurity?
Let me tell you, when someone can break you down emotionally, mentally and emotionally, they have so much power over you.
Yeah, every time they say something negative, you just always in your feelings.
But you start to believe it, right? You start to believe there's something wrong with me. Clearly, this is happening because I did something wrong. We become incredibly over accountable. I'm going to fix me. I'm going to be better. I'm going to do better. I'm going to make sure that I'm not going to upset them. I don't want them to be hurt. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have did this. They're right. I am gaining weight. They're right. I am letting myself go.
Just to interject what you're saying, I used to do that when it came to, and I'm just going to throw it out there, when it came to me dealing with my uncle.
Okay.
My uncle has so many similar traits when it came to me trying to please this person similar to him. And I'm not bashing him, but I'm saying this is something I had to heal from.
Right.
And he was the person I looked up to. There were a lot of flaws there, a lot of issues. But when we're looking at the manipulation across the board, I see a lot of stuff. I'm not going to open that can of worms. I'm going to say I've seen a lot of traits with my relationships to that. So when somebody would say something, I'm expecting everything to go wrong.
Right.
I'm expecting somebody tell me, oh, you this and that. And I had a problem with communicating because I got this from my uncle. If I was late, my uncle would call and you this and that and that. And so I got to a point where I stopped calling. I didn't even say nothing. I would just shut down internally. And so it affected me in a way where if a person like, bro, what happened to you? I just wouldn't say nothing because I'm expecting something worse.
Right.
So that is a huge issue when we're talking about that manipulation.
Right.
Because I've shut down from me. I'm a natural communicator, but I'm expecting it to go wrong before it even gets a chance to go better.
I remember this time in my life, and I'm only referencing it because I feel like it's relevant for people to hear it. It's not, I hate to bring up the old stuff because I feel like I'm always talking about it, but I feel like it's important for people to hear it because it's things that I've been through and that I've overcome. So it's the disclaimer is I definitely am not here to bash this person because we're definitely in two different spaces in our life. But at that time, I remember going through these stages, okay? And I would say I'm at the phase of the devaluation. I'm definitely at this being manipulated and gaslighted. I was definitely going through all of that and at the point of giving up. So I remember this one particular time. There was this constant thing of just beating me down, not physically, but just emotionally beating me down and then bringing me back up. And it was just this roller coaster like this, right? And I remember my mom had said to me, because she knew at this point that her telling me to get out of the relationship was not going to be effective. I wasn't going to leave. I was still hoping that we were going to be okay. I was definitely I really thought at that time in my life I was really in love, despite all of the emotional crap. And I remember she said, I can't make you leave this person, but I would like to suggest to pay attention to when he's saying the things that he's saying about you. And I didn't really listen to it 100% at the moment until this one incident. So I had this huge freaking bump on my cheek here. Matter of fact, I was always insecure because when I was growing up, I had cystic acne and I had got scarring on my face. So I was very insecure about if I had a breakout. I got very insecure about it.
I've seen this in a dream. Keep going.
You seen this in a dream?
Yeah. Keep going.
Okay. So I'm getting ready to go meet him. We had a long distance relationship. I'm getting ready to go meet him. And I just don't want him to say anything about my face. I don't want him to point out the imperfection, right? And so I remember telling him, listen, I had a breakout. My mom told me to put toothpaste on it and it made this whole chunk of, it was terrible. And I'm like, please don't say anything because I'm feeling really insecure and I just don't want you to like make me feel bad. And he's like, no, I would never, I would never say anything. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. So I go to meet him. We're long distance, so we meet at the airport. And I remember I'm covering my face, right? I literally have all my hair to cover my face. I'm feeling so insecure.
Okay.
And I remember we're walking through the airport to get to our flight. And I remember he chuckled and he says, I kind of like that you have this scar on your face. And I kind of looked up at him and he goes, I like that it makes you walk with your head down. Okay. So that was that first little thing where I was like, well, why did he just say that?
Okay.
Okay. Because now I'm thinking about what my mom said is pay attention because it hurt my feelings.
Okay.
Right. But I don't say anything because now I'm starting to feel like I'm shrinking again.
Okay.
Like I'm like, man, here I go. I'm like, it must be really bad. It must look really bad. And he wants me to keep my head down. So we get to where we're going. We're traveling overseas and we're there for a long period of time. So about a week later, I'm healed enough that I could put makeup on to cover up the blemish. Yeah. And I remember we were at a restaurant and there was a vibe. There was all kind of people, a lot of beautiful people, whatever. And me and the girl went to go to the restroom. And when I come back from the bathroom, I'm feeling confident again. I got my head up. You can't really see the imperfection. And I'm laughing with the girl, and there was a group of guys, and the guys were looking over at me and the girl. Now, I'm not thinking anything of it. I see they're looking at us, but I go and sit down. But as I walk towards my man, I see him almost with this, like, disgusted look on his face, like he is not happy. And I don't know why, okay? I don't know if him and the dude had an argument, whatever. So we sit down, and he says, why don't you put your head back down and hide that ugly scar on your face? Why are you smiling when men are looking at you? Okay, and in that moment, it was like a light bulb went off on my head and I realized he's breaking me down, not because I'm not worthy, because he doesn't feel worthy. He needs to make me feel like the ugliest, smallest, most insignificant thing in his presence because he doesn't feel worthy.
You know, it's so crazy how you bring that up about the manipulation. Is I used to do that with my ex. When I go around her family, if we had problems, they'll stop talking to me. They would stop dealing with me. They would treat me accordingly. Then when she give them the green light, everything cool, and everybody, hey, what's up, man? What's going on? How you doing? That's the part that sucked. But in psychology, I remember learning this years ago at community college before I even went to UNLV, is they said that DABDA, remember DABDA was a part of psychology. You go through you go through a denial, you go through a depression, you go through an anger, you go through bargaining, you go through denial, and then you go through acceptance.
Correct.
Or denial goes first. Denial,
Denial's first, yeah.
Yeah, go through denial. Then at the end, you go through an acceptance and a depression. And I didn't realize that was so keen until I was getting out of situations and letting things go. And when you start letting things go, you realize it's like a death. A death puts you through there where you're so in denial that it even happened.
Right.
And then you go through the anger of it all. And then you go through bargaining, trying to make up and trying to make it right. And then you go through this depression out of nowhere. And then you finally get to a point where you accept it.
Right.
And most people don't even get to the bargaining.
And it's good that it's interesting you bring it up.
Bargaining.
Because that's exactly what happened, how I ultimately ended up getting out of that relationship. But it first was that by my mother saying, pay attention to when, I started to notice when it was happening. And I realized that as insignificant as I felt in that relationship, he saw something different in me. And so that was a threat to him for whatever reason, whatever his insecurities were. We were bonded through whatever our traumatic experiences. He was a person who didn't feel like he was enough. I thought he was one of the most beautiful, at that time in my life, I thought he was one of the most beautiful men I'd ever seen. He didn't feel that way. So I started paying attention to things that were like, when is he saying this? When's he pointing these things out? When is he flawing me? And it was always when he felt, I started to realize it was always when he felt that I was getting more attention, or if he felt that my significance in his mind was going to cause me to leave him. And it got really bad when my career took off and I started making more money than him. That was when it was finally like, Lorraine, how much longer are you going to deny what's happening here? Because on one side, he was this really incredible, adventurous, fun person, but on this ugly side of him, it was bad and it was abusive. So I wanted to say one last thing because we only got a couple more minutes.
Okay.
There's 3 more things. There's resignation and giving up, loss of sense of self, and emotional addiction. So real quick, resignating and giving up. As the trauma bond deepens, a feeling of resignation often surrounds the victim. Their repeated cycle of manipulation and gaslighting exhausts their emotional reserves, pushing them into a state of acceptance of toxic relationship, which I went through that. They may feel unable to leave despite the visible harm and deteriorating self-esteem. This stage is marked by a weary acceptance of abuser's control as the victim sees no viable exit. The entanglement in the trauma bond has morphed into a seemingly inescapable reality, further cementing the victim's place in the abusive dynamics. Number 6 is loss of sense of self. Under the relentless pressure of narcissistic abuse, the victim often experiences a profound loss of their sense of self. The abuser's continuous criticism and manipulation make them feel worthless, incompetent, or crazy. Over time, this erosion of self-esteem and self-confidence can make the victim lose touch with their own desires, opinions, and personal boundaries. The abuser's perspective dominates their thought process to the point where they may struggle to make simple decisions without seeking approval or validation. And lastly, emotional addiction. The emotional addiction to the abuser is the pinnacle of the trauma bond. Due to the intermittent reinforcement of affection and validation, the victim develops an emotional attachment akin to addiction. They crave the sporadic moments of kindness and validation amidst the constant turmoil, much like a gambler waiting the next win. The cycle of abuse has conditioned them to endure negativity for the sake of fleeting positive interactions. This emotional addiction fuels the trauma bond, making it immensely challenging to break free and rebuild one's life. So I wanted to get through those before we close. I know we only have a few more minutes, but just so I want people who are listening to, if they're in that state, because the thing is, and again, I'm saying this, and it goes both ways. Men get into these trauma bonds no different than women do. Sometimes the abuser is the woman. It's not always the man that's the abuser.
Oh, yeah.
I'm only speaking from my reference, my experience. But all I know is the entire time that I was in that, other than the love bonding stage and the trust stage, the first 2 stages, there was always me knowing that I needed to get out of that situation. I just didn't know how. And for me, this is why I really feel like it's important to talk about those steps, is because I needed to see how I got myself in it in order to get myself out. it's like that knotted necklace that you're just trying to find the little pieces.
The little piece, yeah.
Yeah, and for me, the pain became greater than the love at some point. And I had to use my anger and my frustrations in order for me to get out. And when I got out, I didn't walk away this strong, confident woman. I walked away as an empty shell of myself.
I was just about to say that, because most people, when they finally get out of a situation, they end up going back. And that's what goes back to when you say resignation and giving up.
Yeah.
And I can resign. I can put in my letter of resignation, but I keep on going back because it was something good about that situation that I feel like I will never find again. And,
right.
And if I'm speaking from both sides, if I as a man feel lacking, meaning I have not achieved my goal, I have not gotten where I need to be at, I feel less than. And if I as a woman feel like my clock is ticking, I'm not going to find nobody else, most people will settle.
Right.
Most people will stay and settle within situations that are unhealthy.
Right.
Because they feel like they will never get any further than where they are.
And we compare, you start thinking, oh, it's not that bad, or when they're good, they're really good. And so what happens is we start to fantasize about the good side. We go back into the love bonding stage, and we're always hoping for that stage of whatever those promises were. It was always me hoping that we'd get back to that.
So a lot of people are always going back to do the way grandma and granddaddy did. And the thing is they will always just have unresolved issues. They spent their lives with unresolved.
That's not good advice.
Well, no. Listen what I'm saying. People will always encourage people to stay in a situation because they say do it the way grandma and granddaddy did it,
right.
But they had unresolved issues for the rest of their lives.
Right.
They were never addressed. So it makes it very challenging. I personally don't encourage people to walk away from their relationships. I encourage people to start learning how to find healthy relationships that are not resembling to the unhealthy that you're used to.
Okay, it's easier said than done, right? So let's conclude with this, because I want you to ask this question. I only want you to answer this question.
Shit. All right, let's see what happens.
Because everyone's listened to this up to this point.
Okay.
And I have my answer, and I don't know if it'll be helpful, but I hope that it will, because the next question is, how do you get out? You've said that you've been in trauma bonded relationships that were very unhealthy for you.
Oh, yeah.
How do you get out and stay out? I'll give you 1 minute to answer. Go.
How do I get out and stay out?
Of that kind of dynamic?
That's a hard question, because I kept going back. So in the phase of healing, you're going to make the mistakes. You're going to keep messing up.
Okay.
But when you realize you're messing up, let it be that I messed up and go back to try to work on it and fix it.
But how do you get out of a trauma bond?
How did I get out?
Yeah.
I was forced out.
Okay.
I had to be, some people have to be forced out. Some people don't just walk away.
That's a fair answer.
Some people don't just walk away that easy because it's sexy. Remember what I'm into.
So you were forced out. How did you stay out of it being forced out? You were forced out of that one. How did you not trap yourself in another one then?
Because now I started the phase of really healing.
Okay.
So now I'm out of that. I've been trying to get out of that, but it was a situation that happened that forced me out, and it was like great, because I would never left if things didn't happen the way they did. So everybody's episodes are different. So now I'm out.
Okay.
But I kept going back. For many years afterwards. It took a situation where it was like, okay, this ain't gonna work anymore. And there were opportunities presented multiple times to go back into, and I realized, because my sex addiction kept me going back.
Okay.
My addiction was
so you're not completely out then?
No.
To answer the question.
No,
I just want you to answer the question.
No, I'm trying to tell you how it's hard for me to just tell you how I got out.
But you said you were forced out. I get that. But but then my next question is, how did you stay out?
I had to conquer myself.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Like, I really had to deal with myself. It was hard. Like, I don't know how to just give you one word.
No,
like,
that's fair. That's fair.
I had to conquer myself.
I just don't want you to go down rabbit holes.
Oh, I'm going to go. I'm going to come back
Okay,
out.
well, we don't have that much time. So let me answer. Let me answer my question, and then we can talk the rest off camera.
All right, can I say this real quick?
Please.
So the way I conquer myself, I finally get out, and I keep going to different relationships, and I have to deal with me to make sure that I didn't go there. And I had accountable people around me.
Okay.
That's the other thing about being receptive. The accountable people that were telling me about myself, because you got to have a positive support around you.
Yeah.
Most people, you cannot do everything by yourself.
Yeah.
So when you got accountable people around you telling you what you're doing wrong, Now it makes it a lot more better because I trust these people. My brother is one, my best friend's another, and they're constantly telling me, no, bro, you fucking up. No, you need to. And at first I took it bad until I started being receptive. And like you said with your mom, I listened and I start paying attention to my patterns.
Gotcha.
Because I love and trust them. You got to have people that you love and trust that have your best interest that's going to help you on this journey.
Yeah.
So most people don't have that, but I realized I needed that.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you. That was a good answer. I got to stop you right there because you're going to keep going.
No, I ain't. I got you in my blood. I got you in my blood.
I appreciate you with that. And I just want to say real quick, for me personally, it was hard. And I won't say that it wasn't hard. But the first thing was me actually recognizing what was happening and seeing it for what it was. I started writing down what I thought it was and what it really was. And I literally wrote it down. I literally created a list. Here are all the things that I want it to be, and here's all the things that it actually is. And I started looking at both things. That was the first step for me, is to recognize, oh my goodness, I'm in this thing, right? My self-esteem was shot. I didn't really have a belief in myself. I had to start trusting the unknown, because I stayed a lot of times like the devil you know versus the devil you don't know, because I was so afraid of what I didn't know. I was so afraid of finding myself in a similar relationship with someone different. And I used to think to myself, well, hell, if I'm going to meet somebody who's going to do the same things to me, I might as well stay with this person. So I rationalized that. And I had to start telling myself to believe that I could have better and I could also be better. I read a lot of books. I looked for any book that would give me some guidance. I got counseling and therapy while I was still in the relationship.
Ooh.
I did all of that because I knew I couldn't just leave. And so I needed tools, and I sought out people who could give me guidance, because in my heart, I knew it wasn't a good relationship for me. And eventually I literally just got up one day and I said, this is it. And I cut it off. And it was hard and it was painful because I still was hoping, but I had to dance with that hope until I could shake off the familiar patterns. And it took time, but I was very deliberate in making sure I wasn't going to go back to that relationship. And ironically, after I left, maybe months later, I went back thinking that we both had the time where we both were going to work on it, because he was back to the love bonding. When we broke up, it went back into love bonding. And so he started to love bond again, and I almost got caught. But because I knew the steps, and I said, this is the same pattern, these are the same things he promised, and he definitely has not done his work. And even if he has done his work, I don't want to be with him. Let that work on somebody else. I have to pass the torch, because I had this fear that he was going to find someone else and fall in love with somebody else, and he was going to be a better version. And I didn't want to give that up.
I've been there.
And I had to let that go as well. And it took work, and it's a continuous job. It's like addiction. You're always going to be an addict to that pain. And there's many different layers to that. But it's me telling myself, I'm addicted to that emotional pain. I know that about myself. And so I have to continuously do my work, to continuously work on who I am, and continuously do the things that are going to build me up and build up my level of standard, so I don't attract that kind of energy in my life, because I'm weak to it.
So you just answered your question the same way I answered too. Ain't that a mother?
No, you didn't. I mean, we just have different experience.
You answered it the same exact way.
Anyway.
You sat there and gave me a whole monologue.
I want you to watch back the show, and I can assure you we did not say the same thing.
We didn't say the same thing, but you answered it in a parable too. I'm messing with you. You know I'm giving you a hard time.
But you just want to keep talking. No. Anyway, I appreciate you, Cleve.
Come on, your spirit is all on me, man. You got
I
two
appreciate
talkers.
it. No, but this is a really heavy topic. It's a relevant topic, because I myself have been very much a victim to trauma bonding, and not even a victim, just being a part of that kind of relationship. Victim was the wrong choice of words. And so I feel like there's a lot of people, I coach a lot of people who are in trauma bonds, and really trying to untangle that for them and help them see a way out. So again, thank you so much for watching. If you have any input or anything you want to share about this topic, if you want more ways on how to get out, if there's things that we're not touching on, let us know. And please do not forget to hit the subscription button. Give us a thumbs up. Your comments, your subscriptions really help us move forward in this program. So again, thank you. And until next time, ciao.
Give the advice. Don't hold them to it.